To start, I greet everyone. Good morning, good afternoon for somebody else, and good evening even to all participants from all over the world. I see we are almost 50, I would say 50 people really from all continents joining us to celebrate 50 years of Terra events. I'm Maddalena Achenza, President of the ICOMOS Scientific Committee on Earthen Architectural Heritage. And together with Mariana Correia, former President, I will moderate this webinar today. I would like, first of all, to introduce our honorary members, starting from Rasool Vatandoust from Iran, Giacomo Chiari from Italy, Michael Romeo Taylor from the United States of America, Julio Vargas from Peru, Hubert Guillaud from France, Anthony Crosby from US again, and thank you all for having accepted to share your experiences and memories joined to the Terra events since 1972. I also would like to welcome Pamela Jerome, ISCEAH's Secretary General, and Amanda Rivera Vidal, ISCEAH's Vice President, and also she's one of the emerging professionals of our committee. And finally, I would like also to thank two more emerging professionals who joined us today, Masoud Nakhaei from Iran and Julieta Barada from Argentina, in representatives of the new generations that are focusing nowadays on earthen architectural heritage. We will start this webinar with a short video that Teresa Patricio, ICOMOS President, sent to us to join this meeting, even if not being able to be present in person. Please, Amanda, we can start the video.
Dear Maddalena Achenza, President of the ICOMOS International Scientific Committee on Earthen Architectural Heritage, dear members of the committee, dear colleagues and friends. I'm very honored with the invitation to make part of the celebration of the 50 years of Terra events. For the president of an organization, an anniversary is always a great moment of joy to celebrate the long life of a committee, a technical body of our organization that works for the benefit of all. It shows the capacity of the committee to overcome the difficulties of time and its ability to last. 50 years on, 13 World Congresses on Earthen Architectural Heritage. It shows that international engagement in the conservation of earthen building materials, archaeology and architecture, it's a reality and a necessity. And that our colleagues in the 1970s were not mistaken in their original intent to encourage exchange of information, to achieve a professional understanding in earthen architecture conservation, protection, and management. Now 50 years have passed, and since the first international colloquium in Yazd in 1972, societies and circumstances have changed. Over the past few months, we have been confronted with many disasters, including the COVID-19 pandemic, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, fires, flooding, desertification of some regions, but unhappily also wars, conflicts, and political instability that are devastating a number of regions all over the globe. The scale of the crisis and the sensitivity of certain situations has shown us the need of mechanisms that allow faster assessments and potential responses, in particular in cases of crisis where a rapid emergency response is of vital importance. In today's world, the context we are operating in has evolved, and there are many new aspects and perspectives, including disaster preparedness and mitigation, that must be considered while protecting earth and cultural heritage. It is urgent also to recognize and mitigate climate risks and their impacts on Terra, heritage, and communities. We are stronger when we do our advocacy work together. And I'm sure that you will guarantee the future of Terra events. More 50 years of research, more 50 years of exchanges and sharing of knowledge and sharing of good practices. I would therefore, before finishing, like to extend my warmest congratulations to you all and to the former chairmen of the committee for having put their tenacity, their scientific knowledge and their high standards at the service of all. May this celebration honor the excellence of the results, which form the heritage of these last 50 years and the framework of the next 50. Thank you all for your attention.
Well, I guess we truly have to thank Teresa Patricio for her beautiful words and especially for her encouragement to go on with these celebrations and with our work. Mariana, you want to take the control now and proceed with the presentations?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Maddalena. Just wanted to thank you, all the members, the honorary members that are here, and also the members of the board that managed to join us, because it has been a challenge to get everyone together and to find a day that we all could meet. Almost all the honorary members are present, and this is the first time that we really managed to exchange and to get to know each other, and especially for the people that are attending this meeting to get to know the relevant and extraordinary work that our honorary members had throughout the years. And this is also a celebration of their work through the ICOMOS-ISCEAH International Scientific Committee. Some of them, unfortunately, are not here today, as it is the case of John Hurd, our former president, and even others that should also be acknowledged for all the relevance of their work, as it was the case of Hugo Uben and Webster, Fred Webster, and others. So just the fact that we managed to meet, and I mean, we have here people coming from Iran, Rasool Vatandoust, we have Hubert Guillaud from France, Pamela Jerome from New York, I believe, Mada from Italy, Amanda also in Italy right now, and then Anthony Crosby from Texas in the US, and Giacomo Chiari from Italy, I believe. And Mike Taylor also from Santa Fe in the US, and also we have Julio Vargas also coming from the American continent and sharing with us all these experiences, all the opportunities that we have. And also for us, it was very important to have present with us the new emerging professionals, and we invited some of them to take part of this relevant meeting, because they are the ones taking the torch, right, to the next mandates and to the future also of Earthen Architecture. So this is a moment of sharing, but also a moment of passage. And I am presently in South Africa, in Maluti, Drakensberg Park, where there is, it's a mixed site, World Heritage site, where there is a lot of earthen architecture still alive. So these shared places are very important to be protected and to be preserved before the earthen architecture becomes heritage that is not alive any longer. So for this to happen, to pass the memory and all the work that each one of the honorary members has, for us, it's quite important at ISCEAH. So I'll pass the word to Maddalena, and I just wanted to welcome everyone that is assisting, that is participating, and from different continents, and that are sharing this unique moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariana. We will proceed starting from the very beginning. It was 1972 when this whole history of earthen meetings started. It was Yazd. And I would ask, please, Rasool Vatandoust to start remembering with us what happened and why this happened. How did they put this up? Were you there? And then I would also ask, eventually, Giacomo Chiari, that was there, to tell us his impressions of this very, very first beginning of a long story. Please, Rasool.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Maddalena. Thank you, Mariana. Thank you, all the panelists and all the participants of this meeting. I don't know how much time I have. I think it's about 10 minutes. I would be very quick in order to wrap up what I would like to say in 10 minutes. Well, in 1972, I was a young man just arriving at the archaeological survey of Iran, and just a year before that, I was aware of this meeting, but I was not physically present in this meeting. As you can see the picture, this is the picture from the first meeting. In fact, this meeting was mainly organized by the people who then in Iran they were very active in UNESCO and working on the 1972 convention, and it was this concurrent with this meeting. So the Archaeological Survey of Iran and also National Commission for UNESCO and ICOMOS International, they joined hands in order to start working on earthen heritage. As you all know, everybody know that Iran is a very rich country in earthen heritage, and the idea was to develop ways to further scientific activities on the conservation and restoration of earthen heritage, which then they thought that they were in problems. Now, at the first meeting, very famous people like Galdieri, Professor Galdieri, Professor Facena, and also Cazzola from ICOMOS France were present. Maxime Siro, who was very active in Iran in the last 50 years, or last 100 years, I would say, before this meeting, they were all there. Mr. Shirazi, the late Mr. Shirazi, who all you know, were there. So altogether, 31 participants were there, and nine foreigners, if I may say, and 22 Iranians, and 13 members of the organizing committee. They had a resolution or recommendation at the end of this meeting, and one of the important points that they made was they proposed establishment of an international research center for the study of earthen heritage. And then they used to say Adobe or mud brick and not earthen heritage. Then they proposed to set up this center in Iran, in Yazd, under the auspices of UNESCO. So this is the first one. The second one, as you say, 1976. It was from 6 to 9 March 1976. Then 27 foreigners, including Giacomo, attended this meeting, and 30 Iranians. And this time, because the Venice Charter had come there about a few years after the Venice Charter, they based their recommendation on the Venice Charter. And at the end of this meeting, again, they stressed about this setting up or establishment of this center for the study of earthen heritage. One more recommendation then was to name a project, a major project, in order to start actually working on the earthen heritage and do the research on various aspects of the earthen architecture. It took several years after that, after 1976, to 1979, I would say, 1995, where Hubert and some more experts from UNESCO, they came to Iran in 1995, and Japan Trust Fund also and UNESCO, in order to study and define the project that, in fact, it was named or it was requested by the 1976 and 1972 conferences or symposiums. And that's why the Terra Zambil project was born in 1995. In 1998, a major project started on earthen architecture in Iran, in Terra Zambil, and many organizations participated and helped and assisted, including Terra, including Hubert Guillaud and late Watanabe, Professor Watanabe from Japan, and also Professor Okada from Japan, and a number of other experts, archaeologists, mineralogists, geologists, and many other disciplines, in order to start and finish a multifaceted or multidiscipline project. The first phase was 4 years, 1998 to 2002, which was mainly concentrated on documentation, study, and archaeological work. And second phase from 2003, and it took for 3 years. Now, after this project, because of its success, a permanent base was established in Terra Zambil, and it still is now continued working in Terra Zambil. And out of these, other major projects were born in Iran. And now I suppose about 60 major research bases all around the country working on the cultural heritage, some of them on earthen architecture. Another very important part of this Terra Zambil project was the training programs. We could organize 3 workshops by the help of Hubert and other experts, 3 training programs on conservation of earthen architecture, and 2 of them regional and international. Now, another event which I can remember is this Yazd conference. After 1972 and 1976, it took several years for these Terra conferences to come back to Iran, and it was 2003 from November 29 to December. Many of you, I think some of you attended this meeting. For that project or for that conference, we managed to restore and conserve the whole Dawlatabad garden. Of course, it was there, but we just did some restoration work. Especially one of the aspects of that project was to turn the stable of the large Dawlatabad garden to a lecture hall, which was very successful, and over 400 people in fact attended, many of them Iranians, and over 100 foreigners. And we managed to publish the proceeding, if I may say, just before the conference. So we distributed the book on the proceeding before the conference. Now,
we'll probably return back to Yazd 2003. I think it's a very important. It is a very important event. Should we probably? So you will have a chance to share also all the evolution and all these milestones that were created. We probably should now go to the third meeting, and it's one important aspect that we should call the attention is that this first meeting and the second meeting was the first time that there was systematically people got together from different parts of the world. So this is an event, a milestone to the earthen architecture celebration, and on this case, earthen heritage conservation. So thank you, Rasool. We will go now to the third.
Well, I have some more words if I have time just to finish up. Because immediately after this Yazd 2003, we had this earthquake in Bam.
Yes.
Just a month afterward. So we managed to organize a workshop in 2004 immediately after the earthquake, and many of you were there. And out of it, it came BAM declaration, which was very helpful for the conservation of the site, which became World Heritage Site afterward. And the last event was the workshop that we organized in Yazd again a few years ago with the help of Mariana, which was also a success. And we plan for future a few more workshops, which I think if I have time later on, I can refer to.
Yes.
Thank you.
You will. Thank you so much. We'll try to continue by chronological order so that we can follow the evolution of the discussion and of the reflection within the earthen architecture cultural sites, but also all the natural sites where we can find the earthen architecture. We'll pass now to the third event, international event.
If I can add just a short
Please,
comment.
Giacomo, yes.
The difference between the first two meetings is that the 72 was basically a presentation of problems. There were the people that had the problem of conservation. There was no scientist, also because there was no paper, there was no research done before that time. In 76, there were already presentation of conservation work. And that was very interesting that in such a short time, let's say the field mobilized and the scientists start getting into the problem and trying to find a solution. I would like to mention Professor Gullaud, who was the spirit behind this meeting, the 72, and with the support, of course, of ICROM, that at that point meant Giorgio Torrata. And Giorgio Torrata has an incredible, impact on all the conservation.
Now we will jump to the third international event in Ankara. Tony?
In Ankara, yes, and Giacomo, I know Giacomo was in Ankara too, so please contribute. Let me just, a couple of comments, and Rasool, it was wonderful to hear your presentation.
Thank you.
I think it's a wonderful background for all of us. Also, it's wonderful to see comments that are appearing on the screen. Dear friends like Stefan Simon, Francisco Pito, Erica Rami, and many others. So this is a real benefit for us to see the comments from other colleagues. Also, I think we'd all be remiss if we didn't remember some of our wonderful colleagues that are no longer with us. Ugo Ubon, certainly Alejandro Alba, Giorgio Torrata, just to name, Gagliardi, just to name a few wonderful, wonderful people, and people that made incredible contributions to this field. Ankara, 1980. At the time, my participation in Ankara was sponsored by ICROM. I was at that time an architect, preservation architect with the National Park Service, and responsible for the initial program that the National Park Service instituted with the National Bureau of Standards to classify Adobe materials for the purpose of trying to define more clearly what some of the issues, the problems, the cause and effect relationships were. I think my participation was because of that initial studies. They are also previous to Ankara, there was sort of an informal meeting in Santa Fe, New Mexico, with several people. Andre Stevens was certainly one of them. and Giorgio Taraka, that led up to, again, support for those of us that was so interested in this particular field of conservation. The things that I remember so much about Ankara was certainly the emphasis was again on archaeological resources to some degree, but I felt like there was certainly a beginning emphasis on vernacular architecture. And I'll give an example of that. We had several tours through the area, and I remember so well, and Giacomo, you remember this too, that the bus would drive through a small village, and we finally, several of us would say, stop the bus, and we would get off and walk through the village and catch the bus on the other side of the village, because we wanted to see vernacular architecture as much as anything. Giacomo, do you remember those occurrences?
I remember those houses looking for like German houses with, beams put in diagonal and then filled in with mud. It was just wonderful, beautiful, as you can see from the image here.
We're sharing some pictures, Tony. I don't know if you can see them. We're sharing these pictures.
Yes, and in fact, and that's exactly, and I mean, again, to me, this was the emphasis that people began to say, vernacular architecture, this is what we can really learn from, how people built in the past and how people build and use these materials presently. I know going to a village like Chateau Huruk, and this may be Chateau Huruk here, I'm not sure. Pamela, you could probably comment on that. But it was I think very important for all of us to begin to look at these living examples of earthen architecture.
What Giacomo is referring to is half-timbered structures, and they're incredibly anti-seismic. And in fact, we about 4 or 5 years ago, we had a joint meeting with ISCEAH where this exact type of construction was discussed. And we went into Turkey for the meeting. So it's amazing. It's all over the Ottoman Empire, but even when you get to Nepal and Kathmandu, they use this technology of half timbering for anti-seismic purposes. And I'm sure Rasool can say the same thing in Iran. I mean, throughout the world, this is the way they learned in vernacular architecture to keep roofs standing, floors from collapsing. It doesn't matter if the walls fall out.
I would like to just to close with an anecdote. When my participation, as I said, was through ICOMOS, and I flew into Rome, not knowing at the time that we would even be going to Ankara, because of the, as it was explained, there was a change in the administration in Turkey at the time. Taraka said, no problem, we'll continue to go. And in fact, it was very pleasant. A thrill for me was, of course, to meet people. As you see here, Taraka, face to face, I met him before, but Paul Schwarzbaum was instrumental in projects that I participated in the future. And of course, Sherrod Erder was another iconic figure for me at the time and remained so for many years afterwards. But that's about mainly what I would have to say about that my first international meeting in Ankara, Turkey in 1980.
So thank you for now. I don't see Mariana anymore. Maybe she's having a problem. But anyway, we proceed with the next meeting. It was 1983. in Peru with the conference that was called Adobe. And I would ask Julio Vargas to share with us his memories. And I shall make you notice that bios of panelists are going in the chat. So if you want to know more about each one speaking, just go to the chat and read. Please, Julio, tell us about this nice meeting. Microphone.
Right now. I don't have too much present this symposium, which is the international symposium. I don't know also exactly when it happened, but that I remember, of course, is the 2012 meeting that we did in Lima, but I am so sorry. I don't remember nothing about this Cusco, Lima, Peru meeting. I have opportunity to explain maybe something more in 2010 when it's a very better time. Sense.
Maybe, thank you, Julio. Maybe Mike Taylor. Can you share something of your memories, some of your memories about this meeting? It's still a symposium. The first 4 meetings were called symposium. Then later on, they changed even name.
You know, I was not there. I was not at this particular meeting. I heard a lot about it, and it helped inform what we were going to be doing in Las Cruces, New Mexico, in the United States a few years later. But I was not at this particular meeting, so I'm sorry I can't really offer any information on this particular event.
But
Maddalena,
Giacomo at the meeting.
Maddalena, I was there. I know, you know, the people on the screen were there as well. Certainly, Giacomo was there. And that was my sort of introduction to more monumental earthen architecture, which in the last 20 or so years, I've been working more on the monumental earthen architecture. But that was my real introduction. Also, then there was a lot of the field trips were very interesting. Some of them were a little tenuous or a little challenging in that I know we flew into Trujillo just for the day, and it was challenging because of safety issues, given the political situation at the time. But again, looking at the work that Giacomo had already done with ethyl silicates on some of the wall plasters was certainly a thing that I remember well. I actually presented on preservation maintenance issues dealing with earthen architecture.
Well, what I think happens is that in this meeting was the first time that the international community really got exposed to, let's say, Chan Chan and Huaca de la Luna, the North enormous patrimony. And instead of a very, very shorter images memory is what happened yesterday to me, that Elias Mojica sent me 3 images of Garagay, of the Monticolo Garagay, that is finally been completely excavated, apparently conserved. I don't know, I'm not sure about that, but is now in the hand of the municipality of Lima that has made a park, and therefore it's going to be preserved from vandalism like it was before. And those images are just beautiful. It's what I think is a nutria, or I don't know what. It's and then 2 monsters biting each other. absolutely colorful and absolutely beautiful. So it makes me very happy to see that finally that place has found its restoration, its conservation. And too bad that on the other side instead, the vandalism dig big holes on the faces of the monster that all around instead are still very well preserved. Anyway, that's it.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Giacomo, for this contribution. And then we proceed with the next conference, where the first international meeting of experts. So the name has changed, and this happened in Rome, and it was 1987. And who is talking about this? It was organized by Alejandro Alba, I imagine. And maybe Mike, you were there, you were present, right?
I think I was there, and it was a very short, small meeting organized by ICROM, almost intern to ICROM, by Alejandro. And it was entirely by scientists discussing methodology for conservation, for consolidation of material and stuff like that. And it was important because it was a moment in which the various techniques were compared to each other and discussed and you know, find the good and the bad of each one.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, Giacomo, I was at that meeting as well, and I remember there were just a handful of us, maybe 10. But it was at that meeting where Alejandro Alba Valderrama and Hugo Ban and Neville Agnew and myself decided to recommend that the next conference, next meeting be held in Las Cruces, New Mexico in 1990. So it was a small gathering, but it did come out with this small publication with some good information in it, from what I remember.
I want to give some other information on this meeting, because this meeting of '87 is very important in the evolution of a concern given to the conservation. Before, we were much more concerned by the conservation of the material itself, the brick, the adobe, etc. And this date, '87, we are much more concerned by the conservation of the architecture. So there is a more global approach of the conservation of the heritage, of an heritage. And also there is a necessity to develop the training, the education. This was very important because, in fact, it is also the beginning of the path courses we have developed in Grenoble, which are a kind of pattern of such courses on conservation of the architectural heritage. It is also the year where the name of the committee was changed. Before it was the Committee on the Conservation of the Brick or of the Adobe. And by '87, this is the International Committee of Earthen Architecture. And this is very important, in fact, in the evolution of the different events. And, okay.
Thank you, everybody. Tony, you wanted to add something?
No, I think that's an excellent point that Hubert just made.
It's important to make us understand, and especially young generations understand, that there is a connection between each of these meetings, and that each of these meetings produced an effect, whether it was the beginning of a formation, for example, or the development of new researches, or somebody named before the field trips. Field trips joined to the conferences are very important moments to exchange ideas, to exchange experiences and thoughts. and to join also all the different experiences that are made in the world. So thank you for this. I think it was a very important point to be noted.
And Hubert also mentioned, and I think we should certainly mention the fact that this led up to the original pilot courses. The first one was 1989, and then 90, 91, and I think 92. Which led up to obviously PAT 96 and then PAT 99. But those were very important events for all of us that are involved in the field.
Because it introduced a pedagogical methodology which take into account also the notion of management. And it's very, very important. And in fact, we will test again this new approach in situ with the courses in Chanchan, Peru in 96 and 99, you know. So this is very important because in fact, we were trying to develop the internal, international, at the international level with the participants to these courses.
Maddalena, you want to take over?
Sorry, my internet connection is very, very unstable. So there will be times that it will jump out. Sorry for that. Thank you, Hubert, for your sharing your insights about this 5th international meeting. We would probably move on for the next meeting. So this 6th International Conference on the Conservation of Earthen Architecture, known as Adobe 90, was also a reference. And it was the first time that it was brought to the United States, and it was a chance also to share. And we have several images that were several of our international experts met and shared their experience, and especially in preserving with a very accurate vision regarding scientific approach on the preservation of earthen architecture. So I'll pass the floor probably to Anthony or to Mike, to Tony or to Mike Taylor, that could share their experience. Thank you.
Would you like me to start out, Tony?
Please, Michael.
Okay. Thank you. It's so good to be here and so good to see a lot of faces I literally haven't seen in decades. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and for some of those people zooming in, Maddalena Molina, Fernando Pinto, some really wonderful old friends. I was involved directly in the organization of this conference. It took place in Las Cruces, New Mexico in the United States. Las Cruces is located on the borderlands, just about an hour north of Mexico. We share a lot of earthen architectural traditions with Mexico, of course, the southwestern part of the United States being what used to be a part of greater Mexico and greater Spain, and of course, indigenous-wise, part of the great earthen architecture traditions of the Western Hemisphere. A lot of puddled adobe, coursed adobe was very common in this part of the country before the Spaniards arrived. The Spaniards brought up the concept of poured adobe bricks. And what we're seeing here is an image of the remnants of a place called Fort Selden, which is just north of Las Cruces. Las Cruces was the venue where we were housed for the conference. And we were able to come to this site. At the time, we had started a test wall project, we being the Museum of New Mexico, the entity that I worked with. We were trying to come up with ways to best retard the erosional rates of these exposed earthen archaeological walls. And so we created a test wall program. Phase 1, we tested various amended mortar plasters. various capping techniques, ways to protect the bases of the walls. And then the Getty Conservation Institute, which in 1985 was pretty much the new kid on the block, you know, in terms of international organizations, heard about our program and wanted to partner with us. So we partnered with the Getty, and with phase 2, the Getty Conservation Institute tested a number of other types of ways to help retard erosional rates, such as protective shelters over walls, reburial techniques, and some consolidants using some of the ideas that Giacomo Chiari had tested down in Peru a number of years previous. We followed up and did some tests of our own there. So in conjunction with this, I was fortunate to have been able to attend a course at ICROM in 1987, where I met Hugo and Alejandro. And with Hugo, Alejandro, and a number of you others on the panel, we decided to hold the Adobe 90 conference in Las Cruces 3 years later after we met at ICROM in 1987. And because of the partners involved, ICROM, Crater, GCI, the Museum in Mexico, we were fortunate to have some good financial assistance to help offset costs for a number of the participants. And at the Adobe 90 conference, we had about 300 participants from 30 different countries, and we had the presentation of about 80 papers. So because of the financial assistance, we were able to bring in quite a few people from different parts of the world who otherwise wouldn't have been able to attend and participate. The Adobe 90 preprints, as you see that image on the screen, was a tome that really had a lot of information in it. And I understand, and I've seen that I believe there's a PDF on it online that people can download if they wish. So at the conference, you know, one of the great things about getting us all together at these events is not just sitting and listening to papers, but networking and talking with people and talking about what kind of research projects could be embarked upon. And at this particular conference, I know that some seeds were sown to help develop the GSAP program, the Getty Seismic Adobe Project program, I believe is the name of it. Julio Vargas Neumann, who's with us today, was very involved in that and was responsible for a lot of its success. Another project that started here was one called TCRAT, which is an acronym that stands for workshops dealing with exchange of information on earthen architectural conservation between borderlands in Mexico and the United States. And to this day, that program is going on, alternating from Mexico to the United States. And in fact, at the Terra conference coming up in a couple of weeks, TCRAT's having a workshop just before the Terra conference in a little village called Abiquiu. So that tradition continues. So I could talk on, and I had to dust off my memory banks because this has been a long time ago. Like Rasool, I was very young when all this started, and now we're a little older, and I've been able to come up with some of the ideas that we had developed during that event. And then, of course, 3 years later, Fernando Pinto, who's with us today, proposed that the following conference take place in Portugal in 1993, which was a wonderful success. So with that, Tony, did you have some other things to add regarding the Adobe 90 conference or anybody else?
Not specifically, Michael, you covered it, I think, well. I would like to, I'm reminded though that I think during all the conferences, there's a lot of things that went in between various conferences, a lot of work, a lot of investigation, a lot of trials, and a lot of errors. And I think for all of us, we're certainly aware of the fact that we learn sometimes by being successful. We probably learn more from our failures. And the whole process that we're involved in as conservators is a process of trial and error. It has nothing necessarily to do with Adobe 90, but it's just a thought that occurred to me that I think we are all aware of. And I think it's just important to acknowledge that.
Yeah, thank you for that comment, Tony. You're right. It was the test wall program that we wanted to show to everybody. We showed it in the sense of inviting critiques, and we got some wonderful suggestions, recommendations. As you say, there were some fantastic failures, but also some good successes. So with that information, we're able to move a few steps forward. So thank you for that.
Thank you for sharing your experiences. So we'll, there are also wonderful pictures from this special moment, and we see them also on the World Heritage, on the International Scientific Committee of Earthen Architecture in the website of ISCEAH. So there's very interesting and special moments where we can, where people had a chance to exchange very important information. So the next one is Terra 93, and this was, for me at least, it was my first international conference on Earthen Architecture. It was one of my professors, Gabriel, that also invited me to go and to attend. It's important to acknowledge that this was just possible thanks to Fernando Pinto, that was the person that coordinated the event together with Margarida Alçada from the GEM. GEM was back then the General Direction of Monuments and Buildings that meanwhile was closed. But this event marked a very important phase because it was also an opportunity to meet people from all over the world. But there was, I still remember I arrived during the night at 2 o'clock in the morning, and we met in Silves, and it was also given the floor to different to the professionals that worked in training people. And in SERPA, for example, and this was quite important. Also, all the work that was done since then. And this event also brought another important issue, which was the conferences. The conference had the proceedings, as you can see now, but also the post proceedings. And on this case, specifically, the post proceedings called the attention for something that was introduced back then, the importance of the terminology that should be used. The proceedings, the post proceedings of Terra 93 called the attention for the fact that what had been decided in Ankara in Turkey regarding the terminology of Earthen Architecture, because there was a lot of different terms that were being used, like mud architecture and unbaked architecture and raw architecture and so on. And it was very interesting because it was these post proceedings that called the attention that that a general term should start being used by the scientific community that worked on this. So used on the 4th International Symposium on Mud Brick called Adobe 2, it was that preservation held in Ankara. It was decided that the term Earthen Architecture should be used in the future. Architecture has been on the front of trying for this term to be used, because there was also a lot of negative terminology associated with some of the terms. So this work done now in by Terra conference also brought a different and a very relevant issue. It was the first time that the term terra, so that came from Portuguese, the earth, basically. It was the first time that the term terra was acknowledged for this type of events. So I'm sure that Fernando Pinto, that is joining us on the chat, will have so many stories and so many memories also to talk and to share. It was also the first time personally that I met Hugo and all the big names regarding Earthen architecture. And I was a young architect, and it was a great opportunity. Gabriel Palmadias, which was my professor, that insisted that I should go, and then I had to give a presentation to all my colleagues at the university about the conference. So it was a great chance. So this is also to inspire the new emergent professionals that are joining, and also the young people that are doing their degrees, that there is so much to work on Earthen architecture and its preservation. It's such a challenge scientific area. So it's very important that we have a growing community that specifically works in capacity building, so that we can transfer the knowledge, because one of the problems that we are seeing is that around the world, Earthen architecture is disappearing. It's becoming more an heritage issue, because in a lot of places, it's becoming smaller and smaller, the knowledge regarding the know-how, the alive know-how. So we have all a very relevant and important task, which is to keep the memory, but also keep the knowledge alive with different events, and especially always that it's possible with capacity building to the new emergent professionals. I also take advantage, because I might lose the connection, to celebrate and to the fact that we are meeting again in Terra 2022 in Santa Fe, New Mexico. The conference, the Terra 2022 is being organized by the Getty Conservation Institute, the Pennsylvania University, and the architecture, and also the department of national parks. And this is a very important opportunity, because we will both meet in presence, but also online. So it will be again an opportunity for all of us to share the next event. So thank you for Terra 2022 also to include us on their celebration of the Terra events, and also to share it with the different honorary members that we have really a chance to meet. So we
Mariana,
will pass
please,
the next
I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you, but I also wanted to share something, because it was your conference, your first international conference on Earthen architecture, but it was also mine, and I suspect it was also Hubert's. So it was, and Pamela. So this was maybe the first international conference that many of us participated for the first time. I was brought there by Mauro Bertagnin. We still didn't name him, but he was also one of the very, very first persons that started to put people together and to share things among us. And well, I just wanted to also say one other thing, which is that while we are speaking, I see that there's a lot of going on the chat. People are participating, and I feel like everybody's very, very happy to meet again and to be able to share good moments together in this big family. Thank you, and sorry, Mariana.
Sure. It's important to acknowledge that this was Terra 93, was also, as well mentioned by Fernando Pinto. It was also possible to organize this conference in Silves, in the south of Portugal, in Algarve, due to the work of Hugo Uban, Hubert Guillaud, Alejandro Alba, and all the people that were then on the international committee of Earthen architecture that was open. And also it was interesting because for the first time we also visited modern contemporary Earthen architecture. So it was a chance because there was an international competition also, so for people to apply during the conference. And then during the conference we had a chance to visit the different sites with the different contemporary architecture in earthen architecture. So it was, for Portugal, it was a turning moment on this concern. Hubert, perhaps you want to share something?
I just remember that also that this conference in Portugal was linked after we were willing to develop a professional training with the School of Serpa. And
Yeah.
we have tried to organize a specific program, in fact, to develop this training. It was functioning some years after, but it was finished. I don't know why, but it was very, very important.
Mariana, somebody had mentioned earlier about post-conference tours and how they lead to other things. I remember being on a bus with everybody, and Mike and I decided that we were going to write a proposal for the use of protected shelters over archaeological sites because of, you know, how necessary they are for earthen architecture. And in fact, that colloquium, which the Getty ended up sponsoring with the National Park Service, and the grant coming partially from the NCPTT, the National Center for Preservation, Technology and Training, the Getty started a series of colloquia, which included the reburial of archaeological sites. A lot of that, again, having to do with earthen architecture. Also the decorated surfaces, which was totally about earthen architecture that Leslie Rayner organized. And then there was another one about seismic, as I recall. And all of those kind of spinned off from a bus trip in Portugal.
Oh, I think we lost Mariana again. But thank you, Pamela. This is exactly what I meant before. I mean, tours after post-conference tours, they seem to be something, how shall I say, just to have fun, but in reality, they're not at all, because they're really precious moments, because we don't just listen, but we share, we think, we get new ideas. So I think it's a very, very important thing. So I think you can proceed, Pamela, sharing with us something that actually John Hurt maybe should have shared, but which is the Terra 2000 organized in Turkey, UK. It was the 8th International Conference. You maybe want to share something with us?
Yeah, I mean, it's really too bad. Obviously, we lost John Hurd, who was unwell for a very long time, but was still contributing to the committee, which is interesting, his opinions, etc. John, interestingly enough, came to earthen architecture as a geologist. So his original training was in geology. And at some point, he was working for the Victoria and Albert Museum, and his first introduction was actually conserving earthen sculptures for the Victoria and Albert Museum. So he did, I would assume they were probably Buddhist sculptures from the period, done in earthen materials, unbaked clay. And that's how he got involved, and eventually started doing buildings. And because he also had the experience of having lived in Afghanistan for several years as a surveyor for roads, of course, he noticed that they lived mainly in earthen architecture, and eventually ended up being a person for Oxfam who would go to disaster areas and help them after earthquakes and assist them in rebuilding, recycling their Adobe blocks. So, you know, he was a pretty important guy and very instrumental in the sort of reemergent committee once the committee reemerged in 2004. He was also president of the advisory committee for all of ICOMOS for 9 years, in addition to being the first president of the reemerged Committee on Earthen Architecture, ISCEAH. for 1 year as an appointed president by the board of ICOMOS, and then 9 years as an actual voted in president. And I think he did a lot for expanding the understanding. And this conference was really very eye-opening, because the last thing anybody expects is for there to be earthen architecture in a place that rains all the time, like the UK. And this kind of proves that it's not just a desert climate that lives in earthen architecture, but it's all kinds of climates that do. And the other interesting part about it were the fortifications, which were absolutely amazing from the Iron Age. These earthen fortifications that were just, encampments basically, but so vivid and incredible, that were kind of discovered by early Air Force pilots, et cetera. Otherwise, nobody would have seen them because they were so monumental. So again, there was a great post-conference tour. I remember being with Giacomo on that tour as well, and seeing all our friends in Turkey again. It was amazing, absolutely amazing, and a lot of interesting moments from that conference, I would say, and a lot of important issues. Can you show that picture of John Hurd, please, Amanda? Yeah, this is John in 2008 in a mosque, and I believe it was Timbuktu. If I recall correctly, it was Timbuktu. And so we all remember John very fondly. Yeah, this is Timbuktu. Ali Oud Sidi, who is also passed away in the last year, is next to him in that other image. So that's, I'm sure a lot of people have memories from that conference, because they kept getting bigger. The number of attendees just kept expanding, and they were bigger and bigger, the conferences. And so it's critical, I think, that we have these conferences. And there was also a post-conference proceedings for this as well.
Mariana?
I have 5%, so I'll have probably 2 or 3 minutes, and then it will fall again, my connection. So as I was saying, next we had a key event that also, on the framework of all this, was celebrated by again Yazd, and the idea was to return back to the place where the first symposium and the second symposium start. So I'll pass the word again to Rasool Vatandoust, and the fact that, I mean, this happened, and there was a tour right before the earthquake of the 26th of December 2003, and we were there until the 2nd of December 2003. So this was amazing, especially because there was people on the final recommendations that got up and called the attention that how important it was to have the strengthening of earthen architecture addressing earthquakes. And then the earthquake, and I'll pass the word to Rasool that will share his insights of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariana. And thank you, Pamela, for the picture of John, because it was very emotional, because I have the same picture of myself at the same spot in there. And it was very nice of you. I mean, John Hurd was a great person, a scientist, a very good friend, and very devoted to the conservation. Anyway, what I can add to my earlier intervention, I would like to just briefly come back to 1972. Giacomo was rightly saying that it was a meeting of giving the problems, but I would like to recognize a person whom I do not know very well, Mr. Muniken Dam, there, he was, and he presented a paper on the way of conservation of mud brick through the chemical methods, which was very interesting for the first time to see a paper like that. So I just wanted to recognize that. What I remember from 2003 is three things, three important things. First of all, a lot of work. I did 2 years work before that. I traveled from Tehran to Yazd several times in order to be able to organize this meeting with my friends. And as I said at the earlier, we actually built up a place for a conference because the garden was not ready for that. So we had to do a lot of restoration work, which was itself a good experience or a good work for 2 years. I was always running all around, so I was not really in the conference itself. But so the colleagues who are here perhaps can add some more words on the quality of the conference and the papers itself. Another thing that I can remember from the 2003 is the juxtaposition of these two events, 2003, Terra 2003, and earthquake in a matter of a month. And as Mariana rightly referred to, in fact, we organized an excursion, post-conference excursion to BAM, and also from there to Isfahan and other places. And it was very, I don't know, I don't want to use the word interesting, but it was incredible to go to a place with all these people, a place, BAM, which was okay, and a month later it was in ruin. So this is the second thing that I can get from the 2003. Another one is that Iran is a very earthquake-prone region, the whole country. I mean, there is not a place which you not expect earthquake, and always when an earthquake happens, then the mud brick is the Earthen Heritage is blamed for it. And then we have to work a lot of work. We have to work extensively to say that, well, the blame is not for the earth; it's the Earthen Architecture itself. The blame is resting somewhere else. So we are continuing working on this subject, and still we are debating in the country this correlation of earth and Earthen architecture. I give the space to other people, other friends, perhaps, who were present in 2003, Terra, if they may like to add some words. Thank you.
I can say that this conference was the conference where the committee, the international committee, was kind of reinitiated by popular demand. So this kind of set the wheels to have the new committee emerge from the older committee. At the time, all international scientific committees of ICOMOS were only permitted one person from each country, and not more than one person representing a country. Obviously, at the time that idea came out, there were very few people doing conservation in general and of cultural heritage. But by the 2000s, there were many more people. And so ICOMOS embarked on a process to open up the scientific committees so that they had multiple members from the same country. It didn't matter, so that anybody who wanted to join and met the criteria of the committee could join. And so this was kind of the start of the process for Earthen Architecture and its committee to open it up and have a newer committee that permitted many members to join, and we're one of the largest international scientific committees that ICOMOS has.
Thank you, Pamela. I don't know if Mariana can hear us. I don't see her anymore. But anyway, no, she's gone. Anyway, Between 2003, so between the meeting in Yazd and the next meeting that happened in Mali, in Bamako in 2008, there was a big reorganization of the Terra events, but finally they landed in Africa, a continent that was really quite of almost ignored in the previous years, and where then by 2008 was at the center, in the center of the interests of us all. And this was a very, in my opinion, a very important meeting because it was very much participated from people really from all over the world, but especially it's a meeting that generated a lot of other activities that happened in the years after. I name just, for example, the project Africa 2009, but also the activities that were organized in Algeria by Yasmin Turki and the Ministry of Culture, and a lot of interest that finally was has been recognized this year with the attribution of the Pritzker Prize to Francis Kéré, that with his for his architectures made with earth. So I think it was a very important meeting that marked a change in Africa. I don't know if somebody of you were all present, I think. Many of you were present. I don't know if you want to share things. Hubert, Pamela, you were all there. Julio.
I think that this conference in Mali is
and Giacomo.
In fact, to do you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, we do.
So this conference in Mali is very important because it has given the possibility to know better about what is, in fact, the Earthen Architectural Heritage in African countries, and not a kind of romantic approach, you know, but to see exactly what is existing in the continent of Africa, and to see that there is a great architecture, in fact, to be conserved, because all the building culture are progressive ruins, you know. Well, this is important, so to have given this possibility to Africa and to our friend Hollywood City. So.
Another important thing, at least for me, again, were the post-conference tours. They were really gorgeous, really beautiful experiences for us all, and long journeys.
I think the importance of this conference was that we finally managed to get to Africa. And all of so many conferences, we had never actually had a Terra conference in Africa. So that was kind of critical that we make our way to Africa, and to also to valorize the Earthen Architectural Heritage on that continent, and push it forward as something really important and worthy of conservation and study and preservation in general. So the amazing, as you put it, the amazing post-conferences tours. I mean, some of these places we probably can't go to now, like Timbuktu, because of the unrest. But it was an astonishing meeting, an absolutely astonishing meeting. Again, with a large number of participants. It was also the first meeting where we actually had the ICEAH participate as well on their own. They came, and that's the committee for the International Committee on Vernacular Architecture. And a bunch of them came to this meeting, and that was great. I mean, the next, the meeting then that followed, the one in Lima, ISCEAH came to. So the engineering, the architectural heritage engineering people showed up. So we're starting to get like more interaction between scientific committees, interdisciplinary research between committees and participation, which is incredibly important.
And I also think what was very, very important in this conference was the social side that was touched, and the artisanal crafts and the intangible world that's rotating around Earthen Heritage. I think that this was, at least in my perception, one of the major things that happened in, or that we took away from the meeting in Bamako. So I think we can proceed with the next meeting, again in Peru. So we move to the other side of the world again in South America. Julio, you were one of the people that organized this gigantic happening in Lima, the 11th International Conference.
Yes. Well, this was more or less open the window for Latin America and all our experience in earthen construction. Not in this modern life, also in all our history. Anyway, it was really an opportunity to talk about natural disasters, for example, problem of earthquakes, the problem of the Niño southern oscillation, and so that happened in our areas. So also, of course, we have a big opportunity to hear and understand the point of view of the North Hemisphere of the world. For us, was more clear maybe the difference that happened, natural happened in between the North and South Hemisphere in order of limits of life, etc. So it was real good interchange of this, the use of this material, the whole material for all the countries in the world. The first beginning for all then was really a great opportunity to show our reality. Was very good for Latin America.
I think it was, Julio, and I want to underline that this is a meeting that was organized in collaboration with the ICOMOS group. And hearing the people that participated, the people from Latin America, this was really, it is really considered a true milestone, this meeting, because since this meeting happened, many other things happened as a consequence. For example, in Chile, the norms were started after this conference. So many things were kind of ignited, many actions were kind of ignited by this conference. And I think that this was very, very important for Latin American people. And it will stay also a reference for a good while.
Yeah, thank you. Remember that Terra, that made these ICOMOS meetings, was present for first time maybe in our history. And Terra is really now most important international group which are growing and growing. Sorry. my silhouette, sorry. Well, was right now is a group increasing very very fast. We are incredibly happy with the results of the research in all these continents. I have a very short possibility to see the big change, but I am sure that ProTerra will be a very important group for everybody, not only for Latin America. Thank you.
Mariana, you're with us again.
Yes,
You should
I'm
remember
sorry.
this meeting.
Yes, thank you, Julio, for sharing this. It was quite important, Terra 2012, because it was an opportunity for Latin America to really have a saying and also to share all their experience throughout the years. It was a joint work with several different experts, but ProTerra had a very active, ProTerra, which is the Iberian American network of earthen and architecture and construction, had a very active process, not only on the site and the organization, the workshop, the several workshops that were organized throughout. Julio, yes. So Julio was the main coordinator, Julio Vargas, but he was. It was with the active contribution of Marcial Blondet and also Daniel Torrialva. So it was a work that was very active, and it was the first time really that there was people presenting papers about risk preparedness and climate change. I remembered all these discussions that we had. So, and it was also hosted by the Department of Engineering of the Pontificia University. So this is Católica of Peru. So this also was important to bring another research area, another discipline towards the research on earthen architecture. Also very important was the trips, the post-war trips that were done to different sites in Peru, mainly also to Huaca de la Luna, Huaca del Sol, coordinated by Ricardo Morales, and also to other several different sites, Pachacamac and so on. So it was quite important because it basically this event coordinated both Terra 2012 and the 12th CIACOT started a benchmark and a milestone on this different exchange worldwide. Also, it was quite important because it was then that we started being aware also trying in ISCEAH to try to move from continent to continent each time that there was an international conference. So we had been in Mali and then in Africa, then now we are moving to Latin America, which had never received, I mean, there was Peru was there, in Peru had a meeting in the past, but this was again bringing the knowledge and the discussion, active discussion to the American continent, in particular to Latin America. And
Thank you, Mariana. Thank you very much. Thank you also for all the support in that opportunity, this 2010 Terra conference. Thank you very much.
I think Mariana has problems again, so we take advantage of this moment to jump to the next and last conference that happened in 2016 in Lyon, organized by Crater. Hubert, tell us all.
Yeah, it was a great event. In fact, we wanted to organize a maxi event, in fact, because it was also a possibility to couple the event with the origin of Crater 50 years before of Architecture of Grenoble. So we organized, I'm sorry, yeah. We organized a conference, in fact, with a large spectrum of institutions, university institutions, to international level. And we had the opportunity, in fact, to couple the conference with exhibition in the Museum of Confluences and also in the Museum of Archaeology of the city of Lyon. And it was very, very interesting, in fact, to cover a large spectrum of concern around this thematic of Earthen architecture. I also remember the very importance of the involvement of a student of the School of Architecture of Grenoble that have built a prototype called the Terra Nostra. And it was a very, very important challenge to them to transport this prototype from Grenoble to Lyon and to rebuild it, etc. And in fact, it was done because all these students were excellent, in fact, in their ability to do the job. There was around 800 people coming to follow this conference. So it's very, very important. I remember it was a lot of work, not only to prepare, but to follow, to coordinate all activities. Yeah, it was a great challenge, but very, very interesting, in fact. And it is a good souvenir for me. I just want to point here that, in fact, we were given more accent or focus to the contemporary architecture, not only with the prototype Terra Nostra, but also with the Terra Award. And it was the first international award given to the Earthen architecture. And well, so it was also a very important aspect of this event. I think now that we have crossed about all conferences since 72 up to Lyon, that all these conferences have given the possibility to create a very important scientific corpus of knowledge. And this is very, very important. It is incredible to imagine how many articles have been written, how many communication, how many books, how many, etc. And now today, in fact, the researchers who wants to investigate this thematic of Earthen architectural heritage have a lot of knowledge to visit, you know, and it's incredible to them to have this gift given by all these conferences. There is another aspect also on which I want to tell something, is the impact of these international Terra conferences with other events at the regional level. And in fact, with the CIACOT is very important, the connection. And also when we organized Mediterra 2009, for instance, or when I was organizing also the Terrasia 2011. And we know that there is many other events that we have not the possibility to follow. So many they are, you know. And well, I think that the balance of these 50 years is excellent. We can also be very proud to have contributed to this. And all people who have given all their energy and they're willing to know better about this subject. Well, thank you very much.
Hubert, for the first time in 2016, the Terra event was called Congress.
Oh, yeah, sure, I'm sorry.
Tell us.
1,800 people, it's a lot of people. Yeah, sure, and the Congress, yes, very important name. Okay.
Yeah, it's marking the change of scale of these meetings. We started, it was a colloquium, symposia, and even expert meetings, and then conferences, and finally Congress. So, and World Congress. So
I will not have the opportunity to go to Santa Fe for this next conference, and it's pity for me because it is in this part of the world where I was influenced by the Indian architecture and the bioclimatic movement, in fact, in the years 80s, last century. So I hope that this next conference will be a success, and I'm sure it will be.
Yes, we are sure it will be. So we went across all conferences that happened since Yazd 1972. We are waiting for the next congress to happen in 2 weeks in Santa Fe. But in the meantime, I think that we have some questions to answer. Thank you, Amanda, because she's beside me actually, and she is running the pictures, changing the screen, and also managing the chat in a way. So she's working here beside. And please, Amanda, tell us what questions we have.
Only to finish, I would like everyone to remember about the Terra event that will take place next month. So everyone can check out the website. I will post on the chat, and we will start with the question from the EPs. We have here present Julieta, Barada, and Masoud Nakhaei that will post some questions for our honorary members. So please, Julieta, if you want to start.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I couldn't turn on my microphone. Well, thank you very much for this presentation, these memories. It's a really pleasure for me and for us as professionals that are more or less starting in this field to be part of this celebration. And it's very generous from you to share your experiences. It's a really pleasure to be here today. The thing that I was asking or wondering to have some ideas or thoughts for any of you is about the transformation that the criteria on earthen conservation, heritage conservation had through time, but even the earthen architecture definition itself have since the first Terra until today. And in this change or this transformation, what do you think, especially in working in inhabited sites, and in particular, what do you think that is the role that local communities that are producers of the architects we work with have or have to have in conservation projects?
Who wants to answer? Tony, I don't know, Mike, Rasool, Hubert. Tony, microphone. Tony, microphone. We don't hear you.
Now can you hear me?
Yeah.
Now we can.
I said everything I wanted to say while I was muted, so no. I think the main thing is that we, working with local communities, we have to be aware of local traditions and ways of doing things. Whether that meets our own professional criteria or not, often I think compromises, as conservatives, we often have to make compromises to respect local traditions And there are always examples of this. For instance, maybe a traditional technique of laying mud bricks is not what we as conservation architects would prefer, but if it works, and basically we acknowledge the significance and importance of those local opinions, which in the long run is going to go farther to ensure conservation of a particular area or site, and then any construction detail that we might want to import.
If I could add to that, I just wanted to say that at this upcoming Congress during Terra 2022, there's a section specific to communities. And so I urge everybody to tune into that if you can. It's going to be a major subject, indigenous traditions in use in the Southwest of the United States, as well as some of the old Hispanic traditions that have been in use.
Thank you. Yes, indeed, there is a big importance in this Terra event. I myself would be also leading a part of this discussion. It would be, I imagine, very interesting. I introduce now to Masoud, who also had some questions. Please, Masoud.
Yes, thank you. Greeting everyone. Let me begin by thanking the very distinguished our honorary members, supporters, experts, and all those who are passionate about.
Masoud, we don't hear you. Please switch on your microphone.
You can't hear me?
I can hear you.
We hear you well. We hear you well. Yeah.
Okay. So my question to our honorary members is, we have seen how international collaborations have well contributed to the preserve significant earthen sites like Chogazambil and BAM, especially after earthquakes. In your opinion, how can we facilitate this kind of collaboration between international institutions and other earthen sites around the world, that are less well known, but still significant?
To whom?
Well,
Dr. Vatandoust, maybe.
Well, what I can say to this question is that, because the question is how we can improve or develop more international cooperation in order to preserve sites. May I just, between brackets, I just say that these conferences has started from monuments, and now it's come to the vernacular architecture. So it's a big change, although we still think of monuments as historic places, but also we are concerned with the new construction from the earth. So this has to be taken into account, because in our country we have problems with the new construction because of the development, and this clash between the development, as it is called, modern development, and preservation of mud brick structures, or even to promote using mud brick for the new construction. Well, this is to put this aside. I think for the international cooperation, to further cooperation, the links between the institutions should be strengthened. Although we have this UNESCO and we have places like ICOMOS, which are very important, but I think we have to also further cooperation between the actual institutions who are working on the conservation of earthen heritage. There are some cooperation, there are some collaboration, but it has to be further strengthened, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Dr. Vatandoust.
Thank you for the question, and thank you for the answers from our honorary members. We will pass to some questions posted on the question and answer box. There is Stephanie Williams that is asking, What did you all learn about African earthen architecture during that trip to Mali that was previously unknown to the international community?
You have to define the unknown.
Was it unknown or?
Giacomo, you want to answer?
I was just thinking that you have to define the unknown to answer to that question.
I don't think it was unknown to any of us, but for sure, as Pamela was saying, it was an exceptional chance for us to go there and visit places accompanied by local people that were able to share knowledge and traditions together with us. I think everybody knew from pictures, but not from real what all is behind there, behind this type of architecture, what values and what richness of history and experience and crafts that's behind this type of cultures.
Great, thank you. There is also a question from Maria Elena Molina. From your experience in this 50 years process, what is the main challenge for the conservation of earthen architecture in the next 4 years, and perhaps any recommendation to address it? It is very a general question, but about what is it for the next 4 years?
Yeah, may I just say that it relates to the region. It really depends to the region that you're talking. I mean, the problem, for example, for the Africa is very different from Europe or America. So even in our country, as I said, in our region, the problem that we are facing now, and also we will be facing in the next 4 years, would be this clash of development of the cities, the immigration from small villages to the cities and towns, and abandoning the earthen vernacular architecture, if you like, earthen architecture. And so the challenge is whether to leave all those places go for the conservation. This is the big challenge that at least in our region we are facing for the next 4 years.
Maybe someone else from the other regions of the world can also.
The material challenges, am I muted? No. Material challenges will continue to confront us because of climate change, and not only specifically climate change, but the ramifications of climate change. For instance, the increase in populations in various areas can have a dramatic effect. One example would be increased vegetation, irrigated fields next to important sites, bird activities that feed on the insects and the seeds, then need a place to house, and often the most obvious places are standing mud brick walls in the near vicinity. Again, this is sort of an indirect but a very real problem in certain parts of the world. So one challenge, I think, continues to be the world we live in and the dynamics of the world we live in. Another challenge is, I think, that for developing professionals, challenge is to find opportunities to have actual on-site field experiences to deal with on-site conditions, make adjustments, learn how to make adjustments, how to make compromises in actual conservation work on the sites. I don't know how to address those. I think we all try to involve developing professionals as we continue to work on projects, but it's difficult, and that in itself is a challenge.
Anybody else wants to add a few words? Well, I guess we arrived to the end of this beautiful meeting. I was really excited to be with you all and to see you again. And I guess I will see many of you in 2 weeks, hopefully, if I get the visa. I'm still waiting for one. I would like to thank ICOMOS International for having given us the chance to make this marvelous meeting today, and for the collaboration, for the organization of this event. And I also have to thank several people, because this event has been organized in the frame of the Terra 2022 Congress. So I would like to thank the GCI and Leslie Reiner that is working for this big event going to happen, and Laura Mayer of the National Service and the National Park Service, and Frank Matero of the University of Pennsylvania. Thank you all for this big event that we are all longing to participate. And also I would like to thank a lot and dear the panelists. I'm very happy to see you all well. And thank you for having shared these memories with us. Thank you for your efforts, especially to Giacomo. We know that you're having still a moment to recover, and we will be happy to meet you soon again. And of course, thank to the emerging professionals. As Mariana was saying before, it's our next generation that will take over after us and together with us in the moment. And especially thank you, Amanda, beside me, for managing the chat and organizing all the pictures that you saw. Pictures were given by panelists, and some of them made me really think that lots of years have passed, but our feelings and our motivation and our friendship finally is always the same. So thank you again, and see you soon. Meet you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add a little bit, just a second, because they are asking on the chat, what about young emergent professionals? And I would just wanted to say that they're very welcome in the ISCEAH committee to send up their applications and to chair just with our honorary members and with all the scientific committee in Earthen Architecture. Also engineers, because they are talking about engineers. It's not only an architect committee, but all disciplines are welcome. Only that.
And just another greeting from Mariana. She just sent me a message by telephone. She's sorry, but she didn't manage to join us again. So bye-bye to all.
Yeah,
See you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody. See you in Santa Fe.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.